Hi, my loves, and welcome back to I'm On Your Side with me, your host, Sierra Boudreau. Happy Sunday, or whatever day it is you guys are listening to this. You guys, okay, we are almost done with November, and I was in Denver for the past couple of days. Not even the past couple of days, really just yesterday, and then I flew back at 4:30 this morning, so I was in Denver for less than 24 hours. And yesterday was also my 6 months of sobriety, and being in Denver, the place where I got sober, the place where my drinking and I developed a very different relationship, the place where friendships that I had, changed and evolved over time and revealed a lot to me about myself, about how I view friendships, relationships, how I want them to operate, what I'm willing to accept in my life, what I'm willing to let go of, all of this. And I say all that because I think so much of it actually does come back to drinking. If you guys are unfamiliar with my sobriety journey, I have an episode from season 1 called Sober Summer, where I talk about why I decided to get sober. I think that at that point, and I was 3 months sober, and so it's been 3 months since then, which feels crazy. And being in Denver, I think just being in the place where I started this journey reminded me of so much. It reminded me of why I decided to get sober. It reminded me of why I decided to leave Denver. It reminded me of the friendships that I had there, the person that I became there. And I really am so thankful that I was able to go back on that date. It wasn't even planned like that. I went back because I got Hallie and I Billie Eilish tickets for her birthday months and months ago. When Billie announced her tour, I got Hallie and I tickets. And at that point, I didn't know that I was going to be moving to Dallas. I had no idea. I really did not know what my life was about to look like and what was about to unfold. I was just going day by day. And at that point, I was like, well, I'm going to be in Denver. We want to go see Billie. Happy birthday, Hallie. I got us tickets. I've been really trying to focus on celebrating little wins, little joys everywhere, or as much as I can, just noticing little signs from the universe, signs from God, signs from whoever you receive your signs from. And every time that I feel, maybe that's, too silly, maybe that's not significant, maybe that really was just coincidence, it's like, what benefit do I have from calling it coincidence over calling it God, over calling it the universe? What does that do for me to diminish this moment? Why is it that I don't feel like I can revel in the joy, the celebration, the serendipity of it all? Why do I feel the need to diminish it, to make it seem as if it's something that I deserve? And I think that's what it comes down to. We don't believe inherently that we deserve little joys, little celebrations, these really great things coming up out of nowhere. We don't believe we deserve that often. We think that those should be saved for special occasions, big things that we're asking for, praying for. It couldn't just be in small things like celebrating my 6 months sober in the place where I decided to get sober. We don't want to believe that God or the universe would care about the little meticulous details like that because it seems so silly. Or maybe we do want to believe that the universe would ordain those things, but not for us, right? Because that feels uncomfortable. But I have gotten a lot better at saying, yes, God, yes, the universe does care about the little itty bitty things. And yes, they want that for me. And so when I realized it was the same date, I really took that as a sign from the universe, a sign to get back to the beginning of it, a sign to really think about it and process it. And what better way to process how much I've grown and changed than by going back to the place that I grew and changed in so much and realizing even who I was when I lived here 2 months ago is so vastly different than who I am now. I have changed so much. And it's, so much happens in these really, really tiny, minuscule moments where you think, oh, this really isn't that significant. And you look back and it actually is. Like me having that really bad hangover ended up being so pivotal to my life. Me having to cancel that Pilates class and cancel brunch with my friend ended up completely transforming the past 6 months of my life. And then the next however long of my life. And so I've been thinking a lot about that, processing through that over the past week, and really yesterday kind of sitting in it whenever it came up, just appreciating that gratitude without trying to distract myself from it or diminish it, make it smaller than it is, because 6 months sober is a huge accomplishment. 6 hours sober is a huge accomplishment, and that's nothing to scoff at. That's nothing to, brush off and roll my eyes at. It is something worth noticing and celebrating. And so I've done just that, noticed it and celebrated it. And so I was thinking about this episode today, and I had something else slotted for this week, but I was like, oh no, this is actually what I want to talk about this week, because in my 6 months of sobriety that has started with sober curiosity, I have learned so much about what sobriety means to me, and I've learned so much about comfort within myself and relationships that I want in my life, people that I want to be around, places that I want to put myself in. I've thought so much about that. And I wanted to share that with you guys because I think that there are some great resources on sobriety out there. So many great resources on sobriety out there. But for me, when I was beginning my sober curiosity journey, it felt like I was getting all these resources from people who had stone cold quit, and they were like, I have an alcohol dependency, I struggle with alcohol, or I'm just never going to pick it up again. I made that resolution. And I was like, okay, well, there has to be some kind of resource for people in between. There has to be some kind of resource for someone like me who is not sure if I'm never going to drink again, but I know that I don't want to drink today. Where does that exist? And I think because that's where I've been for the past 6 months, I've learned so much about it, and I want to share that with you guys because sobriety can feel so daunting. It is not this life or death situation. It is not the end all be all. Like you need to get sober to save your life. I'm talking about sober curiosity in the way that you just feel like it would be better for you. You feel like it's what you want to pursue and what you want to do next. That's kind of who I'm speaking to. I have, full disclaimer, no experience with alcohol dependency. I have no experience with really struggling with alcohol, the inability to say no, or even just, every time I was drinking too much or blacking out. That's not the experience that I had. And I do think that there are a lot of us out there who also haven't had that experience and still know that drinking isn't best for our bodies, best for our brains, what we want to do in this moment. And so I wanted to share this episode with you guys, talking all about my tips for sober curiosity, the things that have helped me through, the things that I have learned in the past 6 months. I think that there has to be room for that too within the sobriety conversation. I think that there are a lot of people who exist in that context. But I wanted to be a resource for some of you guys who are just maybe curious about sobriety. So let's go ahead and get into it. So to give you guys some context for those who weren't around for season 1 or just didn't listen to the Sober Summer episode, I got sober 6 months ago, sober from alcohol. I got sober 6 months ago, and the long story short is that I woke up with this really bad hangover because I had spent the weekend kind of pushing my limits. I had introduced some new medicine to my regimen, and I knew I wasn't supposed to be drinking on it. When the doctor gives you meds, they say, don't drink on this, and you always think you're the exception. You think, okay, well, I can drink on this because I've been drinking on other meds, or everyone else drinks on it, or everyone else says it's not a big deal, or I feel fine when I drink on it, so why can't I just continue? We always come up with all these reasons because we are so enamored by alcohol in our society. We hold it on this pedestal and think that it is the pinnacle of joy, the pinnacle of fun on a night out, the pinnacle of a good time. And until we are willing to remove alcohol from that pedestal, no doctor telling us we shouldn't drink on our meds, no hangover, no, bad fight with a friend after you drink too much, no blackout where you're really unsure and honestly uncomfortable with what you think may have happened or the stories that you're hearing. None of that is going to work until you're willing to say alcohol cannot be the gold standard in my life. None of that is going to work until you're willing to remove alcohol from that pedestal and say, I'm not going to keep choosing you over my health. I'm not going to keep choosing you over the security of my relationships or, whatever it may be. I'm not going to keep choosing you. And until you're willing to do that and say that, you're going to keep running back to it. And I had that moment finally where I was like, oh, I actually can't keep choosing alcohol. But when I was first talking about sobriety, I let you guys know that I had this really bad hangover and then I had to cancel my Pilates class. I had to cancel lunch with my friend, and that was the end all be all. I was like, no, I want to do those things. Alcohol got in the way, so I'm going to stop drinking alcohol until I go on vacation. But I think that was just the tipping point. I think there are so many layers beneath that for why I decided to get sober. And that was just the moment that I called it quits. That was the moment that I decided it was my rock bottom. I talked about it a bit in the Sober Summer episode where I was reading this book. I believe that this is a quote from Quit Like a Woman. But she was just saying rock bottom is when you decide rock bottom is. Rock bottom doesn't have to be this awful awful thing where you're crashing cars or hurting people physically. It doesn't have to be what other people's rock bottoms has been. Your rock bottom is personal to you, and you get to decide what it is. And so I decided that was my rock bottom. I didn't want to go lower than that. And for other people, they're like, oh, that's just a casual Sunday morning. You wake up, you're hungover, you cancel your plans, and you rot in bed all day. Well, sure, but you really get to decide what it was. And for me, that's what I decided it was. And so that kind of leads me into just my first tip, that you don't have to explain your sobriety to anyone. You don't have to. When you tell people, if you tell people that you're interested in trying out sobriety for a little bit, even if you just say, I'm not drinking tonight, I'm not drinking this weekend, I'm not drinking this month, and people ask why, you're allowed to say, because I don't want to. And that's a perfectly fine answer. I think that sometimes we start to feel insecure about our not drinking. And so when people ask us why we're not drinking, we overcompensate and we say, well, this happened or that happened. And also you don't want to make them feel bad or feel guilty for drinking, as if somebody else drinking has anything to do with you, really, unless of course it's directly harming you. But for the most part, when people ask you why you're not drinking, their drinking has nothing to do with your drinking and vice versa. But we feel the need to be like, oh, well, I'm not drinking because blah, 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 but I wish I could, or you have so much fun, or take a shot for me, whatever, because you don't want to make them feel bad. If they feel bad about their alcohol consumption because you've said you're not drinking, that has nothing to do with you. That has everything to do with them and their relationship with and to alcohol. So you don't have to explain yourself. And if you want to, that is perfectly fine. If you want to give a reason for why you're not drinking, that is perfectly fine. But we so often fall into the trap of feeling like we have to over-explain it so that they can validate us. The only validation you need in your sobriety is simply that you decided to not drink anymore. That is a good enough reason. And I don't want to is a good enough answer. And you don't have to be down for everything. Being down for everything is not a personality trait. That is one of my favorite quotes from Drinking Games by Sarah Levy. That's one of the first books I read early in my sobriety. And when I read that, it unlocked something in me, because I was in this phase of my life where I wanted to be fun. I wanted to go out. I wanted to be with everyone. I wanted to be down. I felt like, and it was an insecurity thing for me, right? I felt like I was never the friend who was always down. I was never the friend who was up for these really spontaneous nights, these up for everything, up all night kind of nights. I was always like, oh, I think I'm going to go home. Like, I think I'm, tapping out. And I wanted to be that friend. And because I wanted to be that friend, I was putting myself in the position where I was drinking too much. I was drinking on my meds. I wasn't sleeping enough. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't moving my body enough. Like, there were so many problems with my drinking that stemmed from wanting to be down for everything. And when I realized, oh, I don't have to be down for everything in my sobriety. I don't have to be, quote, sober and cool. I can just be sober and I can be cool in and of itself. Like, my sobriety doesn't change my coolness. It doesn't change my ability to be a good friend. It doesn't change my ability to have a good time. It simply means I'm not drinking to be cool. I'm not drinking to have a good time. I'm not drinking to be the one that's down. If I want to stay up and I want to stay out, that is perfectly fine. But if I don't want to, I'm not going to use alcohol to mask the fact that I don't want to try to convince myself that I should stay, that I should be down, that I should be part of it. It's okay if you want to go home. It's okay if you want to go to bed sober or not, whether or not you're not drinking right now or, exploring sober curiosity. It's okay to want to go home. It doesn't make you lame or anything like that. It simply means you've had enough. And we often lean into alcohol so that we can suppress these feelings that we're going against ourselves. It's like, oh, well, I want to go home, but all of my friends want me to stay, and then they bought me a shot, and so now I have to stay for another 30 minutes because I want to be polite. And then there's another round, and then, oh, I kind of feel like it's my turn, so I need to buy a round of shots, and then I might as well get another drink while I wait for the Uber. Like, it goes on and on and on. And it is an exhausting process to use alcohol as a way to betray ourselves. Just like you don't owe anyone a reason for your sobriety, you don't owe anyone a timeline. You know what I mean? If somebody says, oh, well, how long are you not drinking? Just as long as I don't want to. That's a perfectly fine answer. I think that oftentimes people want to put a timeline on it so that they can grasp your sobriety, so that they can feel comfortable in the realm of your sobriety. Your sobriety doesn't exist to make other people comfortable. Matter of fact, your sobriety is going to make some people uncomfortable in and of itself. And it is not anything that you've said. It's not anything you didn't say. It's not anything you did or didn't do. It is simply you pulling against the grain and saying, I'm choosing not to drink because I don't want to drink or because I have these reasons I don't feel like sharing with you. And that's going to make some people uncomfortable. Those people's feelings are not your responsibility, especially early on in your sobriety. Because if you tell someone you're not drinking and at the first time they say, oh, well, I wish you would, or oh, not even just one, and you're willing to just drop it like that, babe, sobriety is never going to last longer than a couple of hours because someone will always try to convince you to drink, which leads me into my next thing. Surrounding yourself with people who support your decision to not drink, whether you're not drinking for a short amount of time or whether you're choosing to remain sober for the rest of your life. Being around people who make it so that you don't feel like you have to defend yourself or you don't have to armor yourself before you go into these social situations. And you also don't need to be in situations where people are getting really drunk, especially if you still crave that and you still want that drunkenness, because in your head, drunkenness equals fun or drunkenness equals cool, drunkenness equals sexy. I think that there are so many reasons that we choose to drink. Some people choose to drink because drinking gives them this confidence. It makes them feel sexy in a way that they don't feel sexy when they're sober, which is something that I think that I really have resonated with at different points in my life. It allowed me to tap into this feeling that I had where it's, oh, I'm more confident when I drink. Oh, I'm sexier. I'm sultrier. I push the lines a little bit. People are more attracted to me when I'm drinking, things like that. And that's a lie. It's a lie. You are sexy because you're sexy. You are fun to talk to because you're fun to talk to. That substance gives you a reason to portray that part of yourself. It doesn't make you that part of yourself. That is already part of who you are. The reason that it's coming out is because you're giving yourself a reason to let it. You know how many times you've texted something that you really did want to text the next morning when you didn't get the response you want, or you didn't get a response at all, or whatever, however it shakes out, and you said, oh, I was really drunk. I didn't mean to send that, or I don't even remember sending that. And that's not true. You knew that you sent it. You wanted to send it, but you were hoping that you can use that alcohol as some kind of like protective armor. You don't need alcohol to be who you are. Just show up that way, because you know what's actually confident, you know what's actually sexy? Just being yourself without needing alcohol, needing drugs, needing anything to allow you to be. It is so sexy if you on your own allow yourself to be those things, feel those things, say those things, whatever it may be, because alcohol actually isn't the thing doing it, babe. You are. You're just giving alcohol all of the credit when you deserve it. And if you need to keep drinking to feel comfortable, you probably were never actually comfortable in that space. If you feel like you don't have a place in the conversation, and so holding a drink in your hand makes you feel like you have a reason to be there, it makes you feel like you have something to say, it makes you interesting, that's probably not a place that was for you anyway. There's a difference between drinking with friends and drinking to be friends. If you need to drink to be friends with someone, to feel like you have something in common with someone, to feel accepted or valued by someone, you are drinking to be friends, not drinking with your friends. It's a completely different energy. We started to convince ourselves that drinking to be friends is the same thing as drinking with friends, and it is completely not. When you're drinking with friends, you don't necessarily feel the pressure to get that second glass of wine at dinner. You don't look at the menu and think, well, if I get one margarita, we might as well just like make a night out of it. It's okay, we're gonna get one margarita and we're gonna chit chat, we're gonna hang out, and then we're gonna leave, or we're gonna go to the next thing. And alcohol is not the focal point. And that's what I had to remind myself of, that what relationships in my life was alcohol the focal point? Was it that I was only seeing these people, this group of friends, if we were drinking? And that doesn't make them bad friends. There's a lot of language that goes around that says when you stop drinking, you find out who your real friends are. And I don't think I agree with that. I think that people that you drank with can be in some way real friends, but real friends for that situation. You guys had a really good time in that situation. And like I said, there's a difference between drinking with friends and drinking to be friends. There are some people that you just drink with. Those are your drinking buddies. But when you stop drinking and you don't have anything to talk about anymore, that relationship can be let go, and that's okay. That doesn't mean anyone did anything wrong. It just means that you're choosing to do something different. It's the same thing if they decide to get married and start having kids, and their priorities aren't going to the same bar every Friday and Saturday night. Their priorities start to be, getting stuff together for the kid, painting their house, taking care of the kid. Their priorities start shifting because their life has shifted. They didn't do anything wrong by having a kid. They just did something different than you. It doesn't make them a bad friend. It just makes them a friend for the situation. And when the situation has changed, the friendship has changed. And I want to go back into what I said about, when you are out somewhere and you're like, well, I don't want to have one margarita because if I have one margarita, what's the point? I might as well have 2 margaritas, 3 margaritas. I want to feel at least a little tipsy if I'm going to dive in and do it. Why is that? I think you deserve to challenge that. Why is it that you don't think there's value in drinking unless you're drunk? Why is it that each drink kind of has a diminishing effect because you're trying to chase this feeling of drunkenness, this feeling of tipsy? And it's always one more shot, one more sip. Let's get another round. Why is it always more? Why is one not enough? I think the minute you start saying, oh, well, I can't just have one, I might as well have multiple, is a really good time to start evaluating your relationship with alcohol. Because why is one not worth it? Is it because you realize alcohol in and of itself is hurting you in some way, whether physically you're not going to be able to sleep that well, it's going to mess with your stomach, it's going to break you out, it's going to lead to bad decisions. So just one doesn't feel like enough unless you're getting some kind of reward in return from it. And I realized I was saying that so often. And I realized I was saying that so often when I was thinking about going out. It was, okay, well, if I'm just going to have one, I'm going to stay in because I don't want to just have one. What's the point of even getting ready, doing my hair, doing my makeup, picking an outfit to just have one? And it's, well, the point is to hang out with your friends. The point is to go out and socialize. The point is to just like enjoy the bar scene, whether or not you're blacking out. Like that is the point. The point isn't how much alcohol can I drink to achieve this perfect feeling of drunkenness. And here's the kicker. There was this like invisible line in the sand for me every time I was drinking where I would feel fine, and then I would feel over the edge. I would feel too drunk, and then I'd feel physically sick, and then I'm having to get myself home when I don't feel good. It was that I physically didn't feel good. My stomach would hurt, my head would hurt, and I would just feel like I was already experiencing a hangover when I was drinking, and I hated that feeling because I felt like everyone else could just drink and drink and drink, and I would be drinking, and then I would take one more sip, and suddenly I felt like shit. And I was like, oh, well, maybe that's a good enough reason to stop drinking. One of my favorite things that I've learned that I want to share with you guys is that oftentimes you don't need a drink, you need a coping mechanism. When you're in a really stressful situation and you're like, oh, I need a drink, or you're having like a bad day and you're like, oh, I just can't wait to get home and just have a drink. I want to have a glass of wine. I'm really stressed out about work. I'm stressed out about my relationship, whatever. It's always, I need a drink. You don't need the drink, babe. What you need is maybe a friend to talk to. What you need is maybe a moment by yourself. What you need is maybe to move your body and work through those emotions physically. What you need is maybe just like a good therapist. What you need is another healthier way to decompress. If every time we're in these stressful, high intensity situations and the only way we can see through it is the drink at the end of the tunnel, we have to remind ourselves it's not actually the drink. It is what the drink provides us. And the drink is providing us comfort. It's providing us joy. It's providing us giggles. It's providing us fun, relaxation. But there are so many other ways to gain that. And we know that. We know that because a lot of us don't drink every day, right? And so when we need some of that euphoria, some of that bliss, some of that relaxation, we reach for other things. But it seems so natural. I think I talked about this in my Sober Summer episode that I found myself saying anytime I was stressed, anytime I was annoyed, anytime I was overwhelmed, I need a drink. And I wasn't even being serious half the time. It wasn't that I really genuinely felt like I needed a drink. It was more so that I felt like that was just the thing to say. But as you guys know, I fully believe that your words so heavily influence your actions and your mindset. So I was constantly saying, oh, I need a drink. And so naturally, my actions would follow that. And then I would start wanting a drink. I would start craving a drink or reaching for a drink, even though at the core of it, I really wasn't even wanting to drink alcohol. It was just that my language around it was so lax that my brain started believing, okay, well, that's what she wants because that's what she's saying all the time. And so I was drinking so much more. And the root of the problem was that I didn't have healthy coping mechanisms at all. Like I wasn't coping well at all. I was feeling overwhelmed. I was feeling stressed. I wasn't opening up about that to anyone. So then I was turning to this language, which was then turning to an action, which was then turning to a lifestyle that I didn't even really want in the first place. And I feel like maybe some of you guys can relate to that. It's you find yourself doing it in such small ways. And then before you know it, anytime you're overwhelmed, you find yourself reaching for that bottle of wine when you don't even really want to drink like that, but it just seems like what your body is telling you to do, and your body is telling you to do it because you've allowed yourself to form that habit. And earlier I said you don't have to tell everyone why you stopped drinking. You don't have to tell everyone how long you're not going to be drinking. You don't have to tell everyone these things. But I would like to say you should tell someone. You should tell someone who maybe isn't even on the journey with you. Maybe someone who doesn't even fully understand it if you don't have anyone like that in your life. But you should tell someone. And it's not even for accountability. It is simply to have someone check in on you and ask how you're doing. It is so that you know someone is on your side with this. And it's not just you versus the alcohol all of the time. And when I started telling people, I told people really, really quickly. And I told you guys, I told my friends, I told everyone really, really quickly. And what I was learning when I was struggling a little bit with not drinking, because it was like this old crutch. At first it's this fun, exciting thing that I'm not doing anymore. Oh, I'm sober right now. I'm not drinking right now. And it felt chic. It felt cool. It felt fun. But then the months go by and it's like, okay, well, why am I not drinking? Like I kind of miss it. I kind of miss having that experience that everyone else gets to have. I want that back. And so you start convincing yourself like, well, maybe one wouldn't hurt, or maybe, going out wouldn't hurt. But if you go out and put yourself in this situation, you're going to cave and drink. And so I was going through kind of some feelings like that. And I was struggling not only with the decision to not drink, but I was struggling with this fear that I was going to be letting people down, especially when I tell you guys things. I feel like there's this level of, I don't really know what to call it because I don't want to see you guys put me on a pedestal. I don't believe that you do that, but I think that there's this level of responsibility tied to it. I think that when I talk about it online, it feels almost as if I have this responsibility to see it all the way through because I never want to be seen as someone who goes back on my word. I don't want to be seen as someone who can't stick to my commitments, whatever it may be. And so I was struggling because I was like, not only would I feel like I'm letting myself down, I would feel like I'm letting you guys down. I would feel like I was disappointing someone who maybe was using me as their accountability partner. Like I felt so much pressure, and I don't want you guys to ever feel that pressure. I don't want you guys to feel the weight of disappointing someone because of your sobriety. Because like I said at the beginning of the episode, your sobriety is for you. It is not to make other people comfortable. It is not to make other people uncomfortable. It is not to change anyone else's mind about alcohol. It is not to influence someone in a certain way. It is simply for you. And I have had to learn to be really protective about my sobriety. I don't talk about it too much online anymore because I've had to learn to be really protective about it. And if I can't get comfortable with my sobriety myself, I have no business coming online and telling you guys how to do it. And I'm so thankful that I'm in a really good place with my sobriety right now. But a couple of weeks ago, I was not in a good place with my sobriety at all. I had hosted a housewarming party and I had supplied alcohol for the party. I made mixed drinks. I had people over. Everyone was drinking, but I wasn't drinking. And the whole day I was like, oh, I want to drink so bad because in my head, it still feels like drinking is what you do when you celebrate. And so I was like, well, I'm celebrating my house. I'm celebrating my housewarming. I'm celebrating my birthday. And so I want to drink. I want to lean into that. I want to have a good time. And I was struggling so much. But really, back to what I was saying earlier, it wasn't even necessarily that I wanted to drink. It was that I was in this really low mental place and I was struggling so much with my mental health. I was going through such an incredibly hard time. And I just thought, well, maybe if I drink, then I'll feel like I reclaimed some of my power because I feel like my sobriety is my choice. And so giving up my sobriety would also be my choice. And if I have choice, I have power. And while I might not have power over my mental health, while I might not have power over this depressive episode, I have power over my sobriety, and I can choose to give it and take it away from myself. And so I struggled with that. And like I was saying, it's not even about the alcohol. It's about the fact that I was lacking the coping mechanisms that I really needed. And I'm so thankful that I stuck with it. I'm so thankful that I stuck with it. And in the video that I had posted, I had said that it wasn't necessarily about not drinking. It was about not giving up on myself, because I knew if I gave up on my sobriety then, it was going to be a long, hard claw to the top of choosing myself again, feeling like I was worth being chosen again. And that's what I wasn't willing to give up on, my unwavering belief that I am worth choosing. And so because I was able to choose myself and I was able to talk to people and work through that and open up about that, I've now made it to 6 months of sobriety, which feels surreal to me, right? It feels like 6 months has gone by, 6 months where I've chosen every day to not drink. And some days, so easy. Some days not drinking felt like the easiest thing in the world. Some days not drinking was as easy as brushing my teeth, as easy as eating a meal, as easy as breathing. It was like, okay, well, that's just what I do, or that's just what I don't do. So I'm not drinking, whatever. But some days it felt like such a fight. And on those days, I had to remind myself, I'm not really struggling with the alcohol of it all. I'm struggling with feeling like I'm losing what it gave me. And upon reflection, and even just sitting in it, not even reflection, but just how I'm feeling right now in this present moment, sobriety has given me so much more than alcohol ever has. Sobriety has given me this sense of self that I feel like I had lost somewhere along the way. And I've made a lot of big changes in my life in the past 6 months. I got off birth control. I stopped drinking. I moved out of state. I bought a house. Like, a lot of stuff has happened in my life, but I have allowed myself the freedom to make those choices because alcohol wasn't clouding my judgment, or I wasn't using that as some kind of coping mechanism. My relationships have gotten so much deeper because instead of turning to alcohol or saying, oh, I'm having a shitty day, let's go to the bar tonight, it's, I'm having a bad day, can y'all come over? Can y'all just like sit with me, and can I FaceTime you? Can we talk about it? I've allowed myself to actually talk through things, work through things, to rely on the people in my life that want me to rely on them. And I've gotten to really appreciate my friendships because I'm really lucky in the way that I had friends that I drink with. I wasn't drinking to make friends. You know, there were different points in my life where I was definitely drinking to make friends, but my friend group in Denver, I was drinking with my friends, you know? And so when I said I wasn't drinking, those relationships didn't really shift that much. But my tolerance for being around really drunk people did shift. And I want to say that, like, you don't owe it to anyone to put yourself in situations where your sobriety is going to be harder on you. You don't owe anyone that at all. I don't care if it's someone's birthday. Oh, y'all are doing dinner, then going out? I'll see you at dinner. Oh, y'all are just going out? Okay, I would love to take you to brunch tomorrow, or I would love to celebrate you in some other way. Let's go to the park. Let's go on a walk. Can I just come over and like hang out with you for a little bit? You can introduce other ways to celebrate that person rather than just drinking. And anyone who genuinely wants the best for you, anyone that you would be going out of your way to celebrate their birthday, should then go out of their way to protect your sobriety. I fully believe that. And the thing about sober curiosity is that it's not a one size fits all. Some people are sober curious in the way that they'll drink anytime they want to drink, but they're just kind of mindful of why they're drinking. Some people are sober curious in the way that, like, oh, I'm just actually not going to drink at all for this amount of time. Some people are sober curious about, oh, I'll have a drink tonight, but if I'm drinking tonight, I'm not going to drink tomorrow, or I'm not going to drink next weekend, or I'm not going to drink for the rest of the month. Sober curiosity doesn't come in one size, and you have to stick to that. And that's where it's different than sobriety, right? Sobriety is the active, consistent choice to not drink. Sober curiosity is just allowing yourself to be curious about sobriety. And I would say that right now I'm more in the realm of sobriety. I am not curious about drinking at all. I'm not really curious about my alcohol consumption. I am more so curious about what life looks like without alcohol consumption in and of itself. And that's kind of where I've landed. But I didn't just start there. I think that I had an interesting relationship with alcohol, a very inquisitive relationship, a curious relationship with alcohol for a long time now, but I didn't really know what to call it because I felt like sober curiosity meant that I had to just like stop drinking. I wasn't really that informed on it. I really thought that if I was going to say that I was sober curious, then I just needed to like stop drinking in and of itself, and that's not true. Sober curiosity can look like whatever you want it to look like, and it can be a really long road to sobriety, or it can be a road that you go down and decide, oh, I actually do enjoy drinking, I do want to drink, and there's no shame in that as long as you're not hurting yourself or others. But I do think it's really important that we wake ourselves up to what alcohol actually makes us feel like, because we are worth that question. We are worth removing alcohol from the pedestal and putting ourselves back on the pedestal. But if you want alcohol to have a place in your life, alcohol can have a place in your life, but alcohol should not have a place in your life over your own well-being. If alcohol makes you sick every single time you drink, if it makes you do things that you regret, if it makes you say things you wish you didn't say, if it makes you black out every time and you don't have memories of these nights of your life, that is putting alcohol over your self-worth. That is putting alcohol over your sense of self. And that, I would say, is not the best relationship. That said, that's what I would say. Your relationship with alcohol only comes down to what you would say about it, because at the end of the day, you are the only one who is going to decide to put that alcohol to your lips or not. It is you. People can tell you they want you to stop drinking. People can tell you they want the best for you. People can tell you all sorts of things. Until you decide you don't want to drink anymore, you are going to keep drinking. Until you decide you want to start being more mindful about your alcohol consumption, you are not going to be mindful about it. You have to make the active choice. And I know that feels like a lot of responsibility, because it is a lot of responsibility. And I know that we live in a society where alcohol is so glamorized and it feels larger than life, but I think that the tide is turning on that a little bit. I think we can all agree that drinking has kind of lost its allure on our society, not in the way that people are doing away with drinking in droves and droves. There are still bars that are making lots of money. Alcohol sales are still making lots of money. I do think, though, that alcohol sales are down. Actually, I want to Google that. This is really interesting. It says, in the first 7 months of 2024, total beverage alcohol volumes fell by negative 2.8%, which, yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. It says all major categories except RTDs, I'm not sure what RTD stands for, shrank, with beer volumes falling negative 3.5%, spirits down negative 3%, and wine declining by negative 4%. So people are drinking less and less. So I think it's a really great time for you to start evaluating your relationship with alcohol, should you want to. This episode is by no means telling you that you need to stop drinking, you need to be more mindful of your drinking. I am not telling you what to do at all. I am simply saying this is what's helped me. I feel more clear-headed, I feel more open-minded, I feel more firm and secure in what I want, who I want to surround myself with, the kinds of friendships I want to have, the kind of nights out I want to have, the kind of nights in I want to have. I've just gotten a better full picture of my life when I removed alcohol from the picture. So that said, whatever you want your relationship with alcohol to be is what your relationship with alcohol can be. I just think you are worth questioning alcohol. You are worth questioning the part alcohol plays in your life. You are worth questioning if you want alcohol to remain in your life and in what capacity, right? You deserve to be on the pedestal of your own life. And I just know for the past 6 months, I've really felt like I've been in control. I have been the front runner. It's not, when am I drinking next? What did I do when I was drinking? What did I say when I was drinking? What do I have to cancel because I was drinking? What do I have to do because I was drinking, or don't do because I was drinking? It's no longer about alcohol. It is about me. And that has given me so much. And I want that for you. I want that for you so bad. And it may look like you start questioning your relationship with alcohol and you find out you like it exactly as it is. And as long as you ask yourself the question, it's not about the answer. It is simply about asking yourself the question. And I don't feel like enough of us are willing to do that. But that's what I have on my few tips on sober curiosity. It's what came to mind. It's what I've been sitting with and thinking about. And I'm really, really glad that I got to share it with you guys. But thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of I'm on Your Side. And I will see you next Sunday. I love you so much. And I'm on your side. Mwah.